January 18th. Reset physical standards. Physical neglect shows up mentally. When you ignore your body, your mind deteriorates. When you skip movement, your focus weakens. When you neglect physical maintenance, mental clarity declines. The body and mind are not separate systems. They are connected. What affects one affects the other. Most people treat their body as separate from their performance. They believe they can neglect physical health and maintain mental sharpness. They believe they can ignore movement and sustain focus. But the body carries discipline. It is the vehicle through which all action occurs. You cannot think clearly when your body is stagnant. You cannot maintain focus when energy is depleted. You cannot sustain effort when physical capacity is ignored. The mind depends on the body, and the body depends on movement. Movement sharpens discipline, not because movement is discipline, because movement creates the conditions where discipline can operate. Movement increases energy. Movement improves mood. Movement clears mental fog. Movement builds the physical foundation that supports mental performance. Most people avoid movement because it feels like an additional task, another thing to fit into an already full schedule. But movement is not an addition. It is a multiplier. It increases capacity for everything else. 30 minutes of movement creates more productive hours than 30 minutes of extra work. Because movement restores what sitting depletes. Movement rebuilds what stress erodes. Movement sharpens what fatigue dulls. You do not need intensity. You need consistency. You do not need complex routines. You need simple movement repeated daily. You do not need perfection. You need presence. Keep standards simple. Walk, stretch, move intentionally. Do not overcomplicate what should be straightforward. Do not create elaborate routines that require perfect conditions. Do not set standards so high that maintaining them feels impossible. Simple standards survive. Complex standards collapse. The goal is not to impress yourself with what you can do once. The goal is to build something sustainable, something that operates regardless of circumstances. Most people fail physical standards because they set them too high. They commit to intense workouts. They design elaborate routines. And when life disrupts the plan, they abandon it entirely. This is the mistake. Setting standards that cannot survive disruption. Creating routines that depend on perfect conditions. Building systems that collapse the moment something changes. Physical standards should be the easiest to maintain. They should require the least planning. They should operate with minimal friction. Because if physical maintenance is difficult, everything else becomes harder. Your body is not decoration. It is function. It is the system that allows you to execute. It is the foundation that supports every other standard. When you neglect it, you weaken everything built on top of it. Physical neglect is not immediate. It accumulates slowly. You do not notice the decline day to day. But over weeks and months, the impact becomes undeniable. Energy decreases. Focus weakens. Mood deteriorates. Everything becomes harder because the foundation has eroded. Most people wait until decline is severe before addressing it. They ignore minor signals. They dismiss small discomforts. But later never comes. Or it comes too late. Maintenance is easier than repair. Prevention is simpler than recovery. Building physical standards now is easier than rebuilding them after collapse. Movement does not need to be extreme. It needs to be consistent. It does not need to be impressive. It needs to be intentional. It does not need to produce visible results immediately. It needs to support everything else you are building. Discipline in one area supports discipline in others. When you maintain physical standards, mental standards become easier. When you move consistently, focus sharpens. When you care for your body, caring for other areas becomes natural. This is not about aesthetics. This is about function. About maintaining the system that allows you to operate. About protecting the foundation that supports everything else. Your body is the only vehicle you have. You cannot replace it. You maintain what you have, or you suffer the consequences of neglect. Reset your physical standards, not with intensity, with consistency, not with complexity, with simplicity. Move daily. Walk, stretch, Engage your body intentionally instead of allowing it to remain stagnant. Treat physical maintenance as non-negotiable, not because it produces immediate results, because it supports everything else. Day 18, built in silence.